Okay, welcome back. So our third and what will be, I hope, the final coat of white is now on, and that's fairly matte as you'd expect to the finish. So out with our grey sponge sander. Let's just give this a very, very gentle work. The idea here is just to begin the smoothing process, because the idea will be that we can apply the decals directly onto the surface of the white without the need for any gloss varnish at all. And from my experience, that should be eminently doable. We'll probably put gloss varnish elsewhere. Well, in fact, we may be using gloss paint. I think we looked at, the extra colour paints for the wings, the grey, and the blue is gloss anyway, so there's no issue with that. But you can, I know you can just see that little bit, so you just see the fine dust coming up there, which is great. Oops, just what we want. Just go ever so gently. You don't want to go through the plastic, otherwise you've got to get the airbrush out again. This is just to prepare it for the next stage, which is coming. See the dust coming off there, which is perfect. It's going to be to use the, that's lovely, that is. That's got a really nice smooth finish. I mean, basically, I don't like really using white. I don't like using gloss varnish. Partly because in time, invariably, it will yellow. Okay, there's some that maybe don't, but I find that that's an issue. And then the decals sometimes go off as well with the gloss varnish, and then you get a reaction. They also go yellow and just looks horrible, just ruins them all. So my view is if we can avoid the varnish completely, then that's good news. So the next step, okay, first things to say is that there are two further steps to get this to a nice glossy finish. The ultimate blue sponge sander that is on one side, and then you've got a nice clean white ultra smooth polishing surface on the other side. So the next stage is to use the blue side I should say, just to work the surface again, just like we've done. Now what I will mostly do is save the majority of the polishing until I've done all the rest of the painting. That's because the mold's going to need quite a bit of handling, and I don't particularly want to be handling a super smooth gloss finish for all that time, and the masking and all the rest of it. So we can then apply most of the white polishing, the final stage, just before we apply the decals, because the steps now are to deal with this blue phase. I'll show you a bit of the white being polished with the white surface just for the benefit of the video, so you can see that. But the idea then would be to back off and then get all the rest of the painting done, and then just finish off the polishing later. So for this, we can certainly get on, and again, in just the same way that we have done with the grey sponge sander, we use the blue one. And all this is doing is simply making that surface even smoother. A little bit more careful around these angles on the nose, because it's very easy to work your way through to the plastic. I don't particularly want to do that. Maybe you may have spotted that obviously we haven't got any of the original aerials that were moulded onto the surface. Well, I mean, I think it's a bit pointless that the manufacturers do that, because they invariably get lost, damaged, cut off when you are doing all the prep around the joints and to get rid of the joins of the parts. So why on earth they include those, I don't know. So all I've done is cut them off. And I'll add them with plastic card later. So that's coming through quite nicely. Probably hard to see that. I imagine you probably don't notice any difference at all, which is not unsurprising at this point. Just do a bit of this, just feel that, and it feels again noticeably smoother, but there is a slight, we can pick that up in the light. I'm trying to angle this towards the light so you can just about see that. We are just getting a slight sheen now, which is what I wanted to. So I'm just going to press a little bit harder around this back end here, which is the bit that perhaps we could use for this little demo to try and show you just how nice and smooth that is going to become. I'm really pleased actually with how all of that filling has worked out with those windows, by the way. So we just about make the indents, which is perfect for aligning the window decals, which of course are going to come in a bit. So this is all still with the blue surface, and pushing that a little bit harder. Right. I mean, obviously you would do this all the way up here, but as I said, I'm not going to bother with that at the moment. I want to get the rest of the painting done first, and then we can fiddle about doing all the polishing just before we apply the decals. Right, good. So that's pretty much about as far as the blue will go. But again, notice that it has got a nice, I really hope you can see that. It's got a nice little sheen to it. But look what happens when you apply the white surface, polishing surface. You start to hear that slight sort of, it's not a scratchy sound, but it's a kind of a, look at that. Beautifully smooth surface. Oh, beautifully smooth surface. And actually what I do like is at this stage, what will happen is that perhaps on some of these little raised areas here, it does just nip off the surface of any raised detail, but that's fine. I think that will just give you, when you look at the finished model, I think it'll give you just a nice bit of contrast to give that little bit of, almost a little bit of weathering and a bit of relief, 3D effect perhaps even to the surface detail, which is great. I'm just being careful here that I don't end up damaging the upper fuselage surface as we try and tackle this leading edge, which is white. But that's coming on nice and smoothly. And again, the other thing you notice perhaps is just how those panel lines just stand out, which I like that. I think that's great, because you check out these airliners when they've been in surface, you do see quite a bit of muck, dirt, grime, and even some of those panel lines do show up. So I have no problem with bringing some of this to the fore. Yeah, I'm well chuffed with this. This is coming out really nicely. I mean, just look at this. Hopefully you can see that now, how lovely and shiny that is becoming. And you know you're getting it to about the right a right shine, because you just get that lovely little sort of squeaky sound. Oh, I'm well chuffed with that. I think that's come out really nicely. There we go. So just look at that back in there. Just that lovely, lovely, really high shine finish. And that's how you do it. You just work over the rest of the surface later, and it will be kind of happy days, and we'll be able to mask right on top of that. So yeah, really pleased with how that's working, calling it a plan, and back soon, and then we can get on with the rest of the painting. Okay, cheers, bye-bye.